Hi everyone, welcome back to this micro teaching course. I'm really excited to start this journey with you because what we are about to learn will make you better teachers, communicators, leaders, and learners, of course. And remember, so micro teaching, it is not only the exams of this course, but it can be also a competency-based test later. Yeah. All right, let's move to the third component. It is teaching methods, teaching media, and classroom management. Let's discuss them starting from the teaching method. Well, the teaching method is designed to evaluate how effectively the teacher applies pedagogical strategies to achieve the learning objective. Again, it should align with the learning objective. This criterion has three key elements. Number one is variations of techniques. Yeah, teaching techniques, I mean. So a strong micro-teaching performs uses a blend of methods suited to the student's needs and lesson objectives. Here, a blend of methods can cover direct instructions, cooperative learning, inquiry-based learning, or project-based activity. Number two is systematic teachings. It reveals that the delivery should be organized, moving from the introductions, explanations, practice, assessments, and closing in a logical flow. Number three is time management. This criterion assesses the effective pace. In this case, the effective pacing ensures that all planned parts of the lessons are delivered within the allocated times. And I think you still remember that in your micro teaching, so you have to do in a very limited time. It will be about 15 to 20 minutes only. For this case, you can consider the following approaches, like student-centered methods. Encourage participation through discussions, pair works, role play, and many others. Another one is interactive questionings. Ask open-ended questions to provoke thinking, to trigger a vivid discussion. Yeah, so when you can give a good questions to the students, so the student will get attracted. I mean, so they will be interested in giving or delivering their ideas or their opinions. And then the next one, gradual scaffolding. Start from simple concepts and build up to more complex one. So it is to give a step-by-step understanding to the student. Now let's move to the teaching media implementation. At this point, it is purposefully set to assess the teacher's ability to use instructional media that support learning and enhance engagements of the students. This criterion covers key elements such as relevance. It means the teaching media applied should align with the learning objective and content. So we have to be careful. For example, in choosing the tool or the media, or even we can also, for this case, you can also use AI tools to make your classroom vivid or more vivid than to be able to reach the learning objective. Yeah, so to make the class attractive too. Another key element is clarity and attractiveness. In this case, the media should support the appearance of the material. It should be visually clear, logically structured, and engaging. The next key element is teaching skills. In this case, it shows how the teacher should operate the media smoothly and confidently. Yeah, so when you get any technical problem, let's say, so be calm, yeah, and then you have to manage everything before you do your micro teaching. Yeah, so you have to spare your times for preparations before you do the micro teachings. Yeah. All right. That was teaching media implementation. Now let's move to classroom management. This criterion is designed to assess how the teacher creates a conducive learning environment, encourages students participants, and maintains disciplines. Furthermore, this criterion has key elements, just like the previous criterions. The first one is interactions. At this point, there should be meaningful teacher-students interactions and opportunities for peer collaboration. The second one is students' engagement. This assessment is set to see how active students are in the class participations, such as asking questions, sharing their ideas, staying focused. And the third one is discipline. The assessment is set to see how the students follow the instruction, stay on the task, stay on their seat, yeah, and respect classroom regulations. You can consider the following tips. First, maintain eye contact and use student's name. For example, when you want to ask students in the class, so I really suggest you to just remember their name and call their name. Yeah, it will be different when you don't call their name and when you call their names. Yeah, so they will feel they are present in the class. Yeah. The second one, use calm tones and open body language. Yeah. But don't forget. So don't ever make your body language bothering the students' focus. For example, you do like moving fast your hands, so it will bother the students' focus. So yeah, just make it as slow as needed, yeah, but not really like just moving so slow, something like that, but just make it natural for you. But don't give more body language or body gestures for this case. And the last one is foster mutual respect to create a supportive environment for students' participations. All right, now let's move to the 4 components of the assessment. Yeah, so this is the 4th. It is attitudes and appearance. Although it may seem secondary to content delivery, a teacher's attitudes and appearance significantly impact the students' engagement, classroom climates, and overall teaching effectiveness. In microteaching, this aspect reflects a teacher professionalism, emotional maturity, and classroom presence. This component consists of 4 sub-elements. 1. Using good and correct spoken and written language. The second, use a body language and gestures. The third one, ability to control emotions. And 4th, or the last one, neatness and properness of clothing or appearance. Now, let's start discussing number 1, using good and correct spoken and written language. This point is designed to ensure that the teacher uses effective and proper language. It is also to essentially see clarity and professionalism, especially in the context of language teachings. In this case, you have to be aware of the following key elements. The first, the clarity. So you have to speak in clear, audible, and articulate manner. Avoid filler like or you have to also avoid using slang, yeah, unless contextually it is appropriate. Or overly complex explanation for basic learners. So you have to also measure your language and also your audience or your students. So sometimes you can use the very complex explanation for a particular levels of students, but it is not suggested if you are use complex explanation for the beginners. Yeah, so you have to, in this case, measure. So know your audience, then make it suitable with your language. Yeah. Now let's move to the use of body language and gestures. These points of assessment is set to see how the teacher uses body language and gestures to support verbal communication and convey enthusiasm, confidence, and clarity without being distracting. For differences, you can pay attention to the effective nonverbal cues, such as positive gestures. Your hand motion should emphasize points. Yeah, your facial expressions should show interest. The next one, your eye contact. Maintain eye contacts, maintain the connections, and control it. The next one, postures. Your upright but relaxed stance communicates confidence. Yeah. And the next one is movement. Purposeful movement avoids stiffness and monotony. So while you are explaining, so you just like this, so just like an army, so you don't need to do so. So just make it as natural as you can so that the students can feel it. When you feel nervous, I think, and I'm sure that the students can feel it too. So just be relaxed and give unneeded movements, and then you have to show your facial expressions. When it is the jokes, then you can give your smile or you laugh, or when it is a little bit serious, then you can give your convincing face like that. Yeah. In this case, you have to avoid first doing repetitive or nervous gestures like trembling, or you hold the pen like this. Yeah, so be careful. And then don't ever turn your back to the class frequently. For example, when you write something on the whiteboard and then you give your back to the students, so you have to be careful. Or for this case, so you have to manage your body when, for example, yeah, you write something on the whiteboard, so you make it like a little bit like this, and then you write down something, so that your back is still not toward to the students. And then the next one, you have to avoid monotone facial expression. All the time, no smile at all. So that is not suggested. Yeah, so you have to manage. It also deals with how you manage your emotions. When you can manage your emotions, then you can also control your facial expressions. When you have to give your smile, when you have to laugh at the jokes, or when you have to be serious. Now, let's discuss the ability to control emotion. Okay, this is the continuations of the previous points. At this point, you have to manage emotions to maintain professionalism, especially dealing with unexpected classroom dynamics. For example, just like technical issue, when something trouble with your laptop, when something trouble with the screens, yeah, and then you have to also deal with the students' behavior, yeah, so you have to manage, you have to control your emotion. Well, even if you are being observed, assessed, remaining composed and staying calm demonstrate your teaching readiness. Yeah, so for example, when you do your micro-teaching practice and you get the troubles with your laptop, so you have to stay calm. Okay, manage while doing like explanation to the students, and then while you do something to fix your laptop. Yeah, so be calm. Let's move to the last criterion. It is neat and proper clothing or appearance. This point is to assess how professional and how appropriate the teacher's attire is. A teacher should dress modestly and appropriate for the teaching context. So in this case, it is no need for you to use the very fancy clothings. Okay, the very expensive ones. So for in this case, you just dress modestly and appropriately. Yeah. Now we come to the last components, which is closing the class. This part is also an important component in the assessment. Let's get closer to it. A well-structured closing signals the ends of a learning session intentionally and effectively. It gives students an opportunity to reflect, summarize key points, and prepare what next. In microteaching, this space is critical because it reflects the teacher's ability to wrap up instruction with purpose and clarity. This component is assessed based on three criteria. They are: the first, concluding the material; the second, informing the next topic; the third one, assigning enrichment or follow-up tasks. Let's get to know the first criterion, which is concluding the material. At this point, there are some effective strategies that you can apply. Here are the strategies. The first one, summarize main ideas using concise language or visual aid. So in this case, you have prepared posters or a flyer to make the conclusions of the materials. So that will be attractive too. The second one, you can ask reflective questions. For example, what did we learn today? What you got from this lesson? So something like a reflective question. And after that, the students will answer your questions. You can also use student-generated summaries. So in this case, you can ask a few students to paraphrase the lessons in their own words. So you can point one or student, what about you? Okay, can't you make the conclusion for today's class? So you can choose some students. Or you can also create a visual wrapped up. Use mind maps or anchor charts. The second criterion in this fifth component is informing the next topics. It matters because it promotes a sense of directions. Also, it helps students mentally prepare for the future learning. And it can show thoughtful lesson planning. The last criterion in this fifth component is assigning enrichment or follow-up tasks. Remember, the assignment should be aligned with the learning object. Again and again, it should align with the objective learning. So it can be challenging, but achievable. It should be clear and purposeful so that the students understand why it is assigned, not why it is obliged. But the students can understand why it is assigned to them. You also have to keep in your mind that a strong closing doesn't just end lessons. It amplifies it. It should remind students why the lesson matters, how it connects to the bigger pictures. For example, this is the closing in one lesson. Then it can picturize, oh, this lesson is a part of the bigger materials. And the closing also should show what comes next on the students' learning journey. Well, those are the components and their criterions in the assessment rubric for microteaching. Now it's going to be your turns to practice microteaching. Good luck. All right, that's all. Thank you for being part of these sessions. The next sessions will discuss lesson plan preparations for senior high schools and vocational schools. Have a great day. See you next sessions. Bye.